Stop right now. I have to ask, is this a gun that shoots hammers or a hammer that is also a gun? Well, I'm going to talk about eco-terrorism.
Got too excited about jorts.
I am leaving now with my Roomba or your blood on my hands.
I'm back on my bullshit.
What is meme if not air horn persevering?
No, this is not a family show.
And I quote, many American titties.
Why'd you have to bring Dane Cook to this, Andrew? No one wanted that.
Oh, you guys are not ready for what I've got today.
And I've apparently hit the very end of my attention span.
Give me like 30 seconds. I'm looking for rhymes.
Hello and welcome to Debate This, a show where no one is right, but someone is definitely wrong. In this show, we take time out of our busy adult lives to talk about comic books, video games, and how the Batman comes out in like a month and a half. And I'm really just kind of putting it out there because I literally had no idea that Robert Pattinson will be giving us his breathy bat voice that soon.
Yeah, I mean, like, time has kind of become just a flat circle for everything now.
Yeah. It is simultaneously January 2022 and March 2020 at the same time.
I also, as a fan of superhero movies, have come to the state of no movie is real until it actually comes out. So,
Yep.
you know.
Looking at you, Morbius.
I mean, for what it's worth, we didn't believe No Way Home was coming out until like the day before it came out.
True.
Like I had the
It's
tickets
true.
and I was like, I don't know.
Well, I think this whole time is not a real thing goes with a tweet I saw today that was that when Waker came out 20 years ago.
Ew. Ew.
Yeah.
Don't
Feels
like that.
pretty bad. Anyway, so for those of you who've been with the Debate This family since around Season 3, you may remember our flavor text where we took a deep dive into League of Legends, specifically some of the world building, some deep lore, and a few of its famous heroes, and that was commissioned by a member of Buttwap Nation, Zakix. Well, we're now here in the year of our Lord 2022, as we said, and we're back again to discuss League of Legends lore. But wait, don't skip, don't close yet, don't
No,
stop,
come back.
stop.
I've already stopped recording. I'm
Okay,
out.
all right,
I
all right.
gotta
You're still with us. Cool. Because here's the thing.
I have to go get my hair done.
I've got food in the oven. Okay, so here's the thing. Zakix commissioned another episode, but instead of just going over maybe some of the stories or some of the other heroes of Summoner's Rift again, we're going to instead focus on different aspects of the properties of League of Legends. And so, for those who also spent a large portion of 2021 inside their house, cowering and praying for the sweet meteor of death to come take us all,
Check.
you may remember that last year was a big year for streaming shows. Everything kind of gotten delayed through 2020, came rushing back in 2021. Namely, 2021 brought us the highest reviewed show of Netflix, Arcane. And so, thanks again to Zakix for being a little flexible, letting us do some cool stuff. I'm going to do some overview without like a ton of spoilers, but also there's going to be a good number of spoilers. I wrote this out before I typed out the breakdown, and so there's a shit ton of spoilers. So, of season 1 for Arcane, I got into it. I'm like, this isn't interesting.
Do you want to do that clean and be very clear that there's spoilers here?
No, I will not. There are spoilers. There are a lot of spoilers.
Perfect.
And I won't. I'm a consummate professional. Anyway, this is going to be for season 1 of Arcane on Netflix, which, I mean, you all should really go and watch. It's 9 episodes. It's a good time. And then at the end of this, we will then wrap up this flavor text by giving you some of that fun hero lore, some subplots that come from some of the stories behind some hero skins, and etc. So
I want to say before we kick this off, Todd, you could have just like hit the lore of Summoner's Rift again. I wouldn't have known.
Same.
I've lost every bit of information you gave us from that episode.
see, you say that.
What's Summoner's Rift?
The third time that I say the world is called Runeterra, you would have been triggered, and you'd have been like, "Oh,
nope,
that's
I remember
right."
it. I remember
It comes back to
it was the thing. It was the thing that sounded like every other thing we've ever heard. Always.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that the bad guy from Will Smith's Wild Wild West was there. Is that anything?
It was a thing because he's the hero that. I mean, yeah, he's the bad guy from Wild Wild West.
Is he in Arcane?
He's not in Arcane, at least not season 1.
All right, I'm out.
All right, well, with that intro out of the way, using Hextech technology to definitely never make weapons of near limitless potential today is Kyle, a mad scientist who will make decisions that definitely won't come back to haunt him, Harper.
Never.
Matt, a pair of metal punching gloves that hang around as a 7-episode plot device, Cole.
Yes,
And-
Pavlov's gloves.
And Andrew, that man said like 8 times he won't use his technology for a weapon, so you know he's going to make a weapon eventually, Henderson.
Did you just describe Hawkeye? I think you just described Hawkeye.
Todd has
think-
described every show that it came out in 2022, actually.
Man,
or in 2021.
That last one, so these are all obviously bits of Arcane. But man, that last one, I'm going to dunk on, the character's name is Jace. I'm going to dunk on him like 12 times today because he's like, I will not make a weapon with this. And you guys want to guess what he does?
He makes a weapon
Super,
with it.
yeah, if they say if they say a thing more than twice, they are 100% doing that before the season wrap. Yeah.
So I know once, twice, and then thrice. What's 8? What's 8 of that?
Octice.
Octice.
That's a Pokemon. Keep trying.
Nice.
8. I think it's just 8 times, Todd.
8 times. 8 times a lady.
They couldn't count that high back in the olden times when they made up those words, so they had once, twice, and thrice and cut it off.
Fair. So doing like we normally do in flavor text. So obviously we at least have some sort of base knowledge of League of Legends per our episode from season 3, which was mid-November, season 3, if you're looking to brush up on that. Do you three, debate this, boys. What do you know about Arcane? How about that? We'll start with that.
I know that there is a character named Jinx because every e-girl on Twitter that I follow has said something along the lines of, everybody says I remind them of Jinx.
Oof.
But that's all I know. I don't know what that means.
Jinx has, at least in appearance, big Harley Quinn energy.
Yeah.
Got it.
Big E-girl
Okay.
energy.
Yeah. I know about that much. I know that Summoner's Rift is a place, maybe, associated with Arcane.
We're not talking about Summoner's Rift today, Kyle.
And and I know everyone is going to tell me to watch this show every time a season comes out, and I'm going to tell them now I have too many other shows to watch. I can't, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, what I know about this show is that I will watch it after the Mandalorian. You want to know what show I've never watched and
That hurts
probably
so
will never
bad.
watch?
I hate how much you refuse to just watch The
Because
Mandalorian
now it's a thing.
so badly. It's like me playing Breath of the Wild.
I've still
Yeah.
only made it 4 episodes into the Mandalorian. I've made it
What?
about 4 in.
Get 'em.
Like,
Get him.
I get it.
Can't-
I
get
also
it.
haven't watched Mandalorian.
Fuck.
Yeah. Todd, there's so many things
what
that you
am- what am I-
you haven't done in your life that I could roast
I
you for.
hosted the Mandalorian flavor text, and I haven't watched the Mandalorian.
I haven't played Chrono Trigger and I haven't played Breath of the Wild, and it's
Yeah,
two
exactly.
things I'm really sad about. Okay, not the point. So per usual, when we do one of these flavor texts, I have created an imager. Right, that's how we say it. That's the right
Imager.
pronunciation.
Imgur.
Imgur feels so much better. Not the point. I do have an Imager link that we will put. It's both in the show notes for the patrons that have access to that, but we'll also put it in the show notes of the podcast itself. So without further ado, I'm going to do some just brief setup before I get into the bits of Arcane. And so it's worth noting that the Netflix run in 2021 was 9 episodes, and it was released as 3 acts when it came out. And so each act is 3 episodes. So I'm going to break them down in their first, second, and third act form. And so if you recall, the areas of the world of League of Legends, they take place in the world Runeterra. So there I said it. It's the first and I think the last time I say it. The show Arcane specifically is set in 2 areas that we see. And one is the thriving utopian hoity-toity, like holy city of Piltover. And then mirror that is the oppressed underground sewer city of Zaun. Now, it's not really called Zaun yet when we're watching this, but it ends up evolving into that.
We learn why it's called Zon.
We get it. We get the naming of Zaun by the end of the series.
Did Steve Zahn live there?
Nice.
It's I was gonna say it's Jonathan Zahn, creator of Zaun. But the point that's important is that if you're listening to this and you haven't watched Arcane yet and you're a big League of Legends fan, you know of Zaun. Zaun's a thing. It's on the interactive map. They're dual cities that separate between like privilege and not. Anyway, that's where Arcane takes place. And to really drive home the animosity between these like cities of haves and have-nots, years before the show even picks up, which you kind of get in flashbacks early on, but it's worth setting the stage. Rebels from Zaun marched across the bridge that connects the two cities, which resulted in this like brutal retaliation that actually left the parents of our two main characters, Powder and Vi, their parents dead. And so, like I said, the two main characters, Powder and Vi, Powder has blue hair, Vi has pink hair. And a fun fact, Vi's voice is Haley Steinfeld. We cannot get enough of her here on Debate This.
She had a very good year.
Yeah, she had a great year.
Or I guess a very good 2020.
Yeah. So if you are in the Imager, image 1 is that of the children, Powder and Vi. You will know her name is Vi. It is pronounced Vi because it is short for violence, is something that I learned at some point. Yeah, you don't get that in Arcane. You get that in like her character, like League lore, because these are their origin stories.
Imagine looking at the face of your sweet newborn baby child and violence.
It's probably short for Violet, honestly, but like I did a double check before recording because it's been a couple days since I watched this, and I was like, is it V or Vi? And the first thing is Vi is in violence, and I was like, oh, okay, great.
They're gonna change it to Violet through the course of Arcane, and it's going to split the League of Legends community.
Yeah,
it's going to tear them asunder. And
it honestly, it might be Violet. I don't remember. We get them as like teens because here's where the show starts. So we have Powder
real quick talk before the show starts. Sorry, I have a real question, like real actual question. So Powder and Vi, are they playable characters in League of Legends?
They are. They are champions in League of Legends. And so as we go through this, I will note when a character that we find in the show becomes a playable character that we at least know of.
Okay, and then follow-up question, were Powder and Vi champions in League before Arcane came out?
Yes.
Or are they like... They're like movie special characters and they were created for us.
No, they've been around. They've been around for a while. I don't know if they were around when I was playing, but I have seen these characters in their animations before.
Follow up question. What
yes,
are the metagame tier rankings for Violet and Powder
in
the League of Legends metagame?
Well, let me pull my glasses up. Well, Powder is not actually a playable character. The character that she is by the end of this show is a playable character. Vi, however, is a playable character as we get to know her in the show. I do not know the answer to your question. That is just more things I wanted to say out loud to make it sound like I'm familiar with the source.
That was good.
Yeah.
It's good, right?
You did a good job.
I believed you, yeah.
Okay, we have this show, and it starts. And so we have Powder and Vi. They're like teens-ish, age is ambiguous. And what happened is since their parents are dead, they're being raised by the leader of the rebel forces, the rebels in the Undercity. They're not called the rebel forces. That's not it.
Okay. I mean, look, Star Wars got away with it. So
yeah, right. Yeah. So this is like the de facto leader of the people that live in the Undercity, and his name is Vander. And so Vander runs this bar, and so he's raising these two kids along with his own kids. It's definitely got this like Lost Boys energy. They're just like kids that are like, running around, living in, scavenging stuff, doing whatever. So Vander runs this bar in the Undercity. People like him, and he doesn't take shit from anyone. But like throughout, as you see him, he's definitely got this energy of like his fighting days are behind him. He's hung up his weapons in exchange for just kind of being a force for good. He is also you with the hand.
I would like to ask if Vander is pulled in for one more ride.
Vander is gonna get pulled in for one more ride.
Perfect.
And that's great. Yeah, Vander literally his weapon of choice is these two like metallic punching gloves. And think like the Power Fist.
The Chekhov's gloves from the intro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Think like Power Fists from Fallout, and they hang over the top of the bar. Like it's a whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but they don't they get used briefly, and then it's a whole thing. I'll get to it.
So it's like truly Chekhov's gloves.
Yes.
I called them Pavlov's earlier. I'm not great with...
It's fine.
With your Russian surnames.
Yeah.
So Vander's a hunk. And to prove that, he is image 2 in the gallery. He's just like good looking dude.
He's got some daddy energy for sure.
Yeah. He's got the gruff, I love you a lot and I'm gonna protect you, but also be smart about your actions. I don't want to be disappointed. Daddy energy.
the lives on the outskirts of society but has a heart of gold character.
It's Liam Neeson. We get it. It's Liam Neeson.
This is played by a buff Liam Neeson, probably. So anyway, the show kind of pops off with Powder and Vi along with their 2 adopted brothers. They go up to the like upper city in Piltover and they do a heist because they steal shit. It's what they do. And so they end up at this like ritzy penthouse after receiving a tip from their friend Echo, spelled Ekko. Echo is also a kid, but I put him as image 3 in the library. He becomes a playable character in League of Legends as a champion, and this is his like adult form riding this like dope hoverboard. So he's a kid. He's just a kid in this like intro scene. But yeah, Echo tells them like, hey, I know a place you guys can steal some good shit. And so they end up at this penthouse, and it turns out it is this penthouse of this great inventor. And while they're there, Powder, which is the younger of the 2 sisters, she finds this box of blue magic crystals, as one is wont to do.
Now, is she the blue-haired one?
Blue-haired one. Yep, okay, she's the younger of the 2. Vi is the older one. And Vi's kind of like the leader of this little like group of kids. And so Powder's like snooping around. She finds this box of blue crystals, and she takes them, but obviously one's got to shatter because like it can't be a perfect heist. And when it shatters, it blows a hole in the side of the penthouse.
Oh shit!
And it creates this like chase scene where all of the 4 kids and all the shit they've grabbed, including some of these like explosive gems.
These are like nitroglycerin crystals. Is that what's
that's what I mean. Much like Wild West with the nitroglycerin bottles.
There it is.
They're MacGuffin energy source crystals. I'm sure.
Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of that shit. So like lock in on that.
I've watched shows before. I know how things work.
I've done a fantasy.
Well, so they just blow a hole in this wall, and so the police in Piltover take notice of this, and so they have to run from the city of Piltover back to the Undercity to avoid these enforcers, or what they're called, which are the Piltover police.
Doesn't Piltover sound like a small rural town like outside of Dallas?
It didn't to me until Todd said Piltover police, and now I can hear like Piltover Police Department on the local radio.
It's one guy sleeping at his desk.
It's Barney Fife.
It's specifically the small town that James Marsden is a sheriff of in the Sonic movie. That's Piltover.
Yes. So they do
Phil from Piltover.
They Piltover Phil. So they do this whole like run out of the city, and they're fine. Some would say they escape from the city, and they end up in the Undercity, and they are cornered by the quote bad teens. And so these are
the rough kids.
The rough kids, and they're led by this older teen boy who is obviously the leader. His name's Deckard. That only matters one other time from now, so I didn't like put a picture in him or anything. And so he wants to like throw hands and take their shit, and Vi instead like punches him in the jaw, and they beat the shit out of the bad kids. Nice. It's this like the good kids fight the bad kids. Now one of the bad kids chases a much younger Powder, and so she runs, and she ends up dumping their entire bag of stolen goods into the water while she's getting chased. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Her older sister and her like adopted brothers are super mad at her, and one of the kids actually says like, there's a lot of this "you're not good enough" energy. You're the younger daughter, younger sister, blah blah. But at one point, one of the brothers they call Powder a Jinx. There it is. That is her League of Legends champion name. We'll get there.
He said the name of the movie.
This is super important. This is a core memory. This is a thing. And so Vander, who is obviously like all knowing, thank you, the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing, appreciate that. Vander, who knows everything and realizes they've done shit because he's heard reports of explosions in the upper city. He scolds them for their recklessness before the current sheriff of Piltover, a woman named Grayson. No, it's a woman named
Phil
Grayson.
from Piltover.
This sheriff shows up and is like, "Hey, I know shit happened and you're involved. What's up?" So that is happening. We get a side clip of this character named Silco. Silco runs the Undercity, like actually runs it as like this bad guy. And he ends up interrogating Deckard, that bad teen, and he doesn't get what he wants from him, so he ends up testing this scary purple, like, mutagen Bane juice on this kid. Yeah,
Okay.
That's the best I got for you.
Fine.
Inject sketchy purple substance into this kid.
With the reveal of the name Silco, I wanna take this time. Dune has come out, fantasy writers, and you can just name your character Paul now because Dune is popular and had Paul Idaho, I think his name was.
Oh God!
Not every the normal names can exist in your fantasy world. It's fine. Go on.
Well, Silco is the bad guy. Silco's the bad guy, and Silco has control of this like liquid that is called Shimmer, and so that is
my favorite song by Fuel.
Yeah. So the only entity of this story that we haven't met yet is characters from like the upper city of Piltover, and so we finally get to meet Jace. Jace is a blue collar guy who's been raised by a blue collar. The whole bit is like over and over
Matt
again.
Damon.
He is Matt Damon. The whole thing is that like Jace over and over again is like my family. They built hammers for the working man, and now I get to make a difference. And so it's
Kyle.
it's actually
Kyle
good.
is absolutely losing it.
It's actually good.
I
and
built we need a blue collar background for this character.
His family built hammers.
We built
Well,
hammers.
okay, wait, time out. Side note.
Does he have a Pittsburgh accent? Because I feel like he should have a Pittsburgh accent.
No,
too.
he's perfect. And so the thing about Jace and his family that builds hammers, it is an incredible foreshadowing to anyone who knows League of Legends lore, which Jace is image for in the album. Like, you can see his chiseled jaw.
He's got a strong jawline.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
He's
he does
great.
not look blue collar.
I do wanna-
Those hands have never touched the working world.
They've
No.
never hammered a hammer.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the story. Is that his family were like these hardworking blue collar folk, and so
Got
he
it.
is now studying at the academy in Piltover.
Oh, he's a child
he's
of
a-
privilege. He's
Well,
coasting off of his
he's-
parents' success.
He's Johnny.
I mean-
he's Johnny Fancy Boy.
I mean, if anything, he is incredibly talented, incredibly bright, hardworking, and like he is sprung up from like his family's hard work. So I don't know if he's necessarily privileged, but the point being is that we find out that he is the owner of that penthouse lab that they were heisting. And
I don't
so-
know if he's privileged.
Yeah, okay,
Owns a
really.
penthouse lab.
Yeah, okay, I get it. You're right. It is certainly a fancy boy loft, so that's fair.
Boom roasted.
so
I want to
we-
point out that the good boy in the Magic the Gathering lore is also named Jace, and
Perfect.
that's all I have to go off of.
Great.
Also want to point out that everyone's nephew is named Jace.
Jace, yeah. Yeah, he might as well. I mean, the timing of when Jace was created as a character, his name could have been Kale, and it would have been fine. Anyway, the point is here that he is a student at the academy in Piltover, which is like a prestigious thing to be doing. But we also find out that he's experimenting in illegal arcane magic, because in this world, actual experimentation with magic is like scary and foreign and not really okay. So, and we get like the lore as to why he's experimenting with arcane magic, and we find out that when he was a child, he was saved by some mage in the desert.
And he doesn't think the rules apply to him because he's the child of privilege, and no one's ever told him no. And
and his family made hammers. And so another fun thing is that like we get this cutscene of him being saved by this like mage in the desert, and it's speculated that mage could be the League of Legends character Rise, but there's no proof of that. It's just it looks like him. It's one of those. It looks like a duck, cracks like a duck, quacks like a duck, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so obviously this big magic explosion shit happens, and Jace is expelled from the academy after it is found out that like that was him tampering with magic stuff, and which is rightly so.
Cool.
However, once he is kicked out of the academy, the assistant to the academy's professor, who is named Victor, Victor like pulls him aside and is like, hey, I think your magic's going to change the world. I want to help you. And so Victor has some sort of illness and a physical disability that's not really incredibly clear, but he is Image 5 in the Imager.
Does he want to turn everybody into lizards, Todd?
Victor does not want to turn everyone into lizards. It is also worth noting that Victor does become a champion. But if you right now, both you three on the podcast and listeners, were to look at this picture and then Google image search Victor Champion League of Legends, those two things will not match up. And they're not going to match up for like 7 more episodes.
Yeah, because he hasn't taken the lizard serum yet, Todd.
Okay, listen, Kyle.
What hero is he?
His name is Victor, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
He undergoes some life-changing physical alteration as a result of trying to cure whatever his physical disability is. Not unlike
he's like
the villain from Spider-Man who wanted to turn everybody into lizards.
Yeah, he kind of looks like Ultron.
Yeah, he's gonna look like Ultron eventually, but that's not the point here. So we also get to meet the professor that Victor works under. His name is Heimerdinger, and that is...
I remember that name.
Yep, that is Image 6. He is more or less if Torbjorn is like a grizzled mechanic that makes turrets, Heimerdinger
but also
is
a
like...
hamster.
Yeah, but also, yeah, Heimerdinger is a Yorkel? Is that what they are?
Okay.
It looks like Babu Frick from the last Star Wars movie. Was that for anyone?
It was. I get that.
It.
It does look like a anthropomorphized like toy dog, like
yeah,
toy dog breed.
He is a Yordle. And so he is the lead professor at
Yordle the Turtle.
the university. Yordle the Turtle. Also, he was my favorite champion, so shout out to Heimerdinger. You're great. So we flash back into the Undercity. And so a bunch of those Piltover cops are there at Vander's bar, and they're like, hey, we know that you know what happened up there, and you got to tell us what happened. And he's like, no, I won't, and it's not going to happen. It's just this problem's just going to go away if I just don't like engage here. However, Vi is like, no, we can't just let them stomp around here and trash your bar and do whatever. And so she's like, I'm going to go turn myself in because I did this. And that's my character arc because I am the good one.
She's lawful good.
She's lawful good. And yeah, that seems right, I think. And so that's through episode 2. And so we actually start episode 3 with a flashback that shows that Vander, the good bar daddy, and Silco, the bad man, have this like deep history in the Undercity when they fought together to free the Undercity from Piltover years ago. And that story ended when Vander had brokered a peace agreement. The note here says peach agreement, so that's fun. That could have also been a nice agreement. Anyway, he wanted to broker a peace agreement with Piltover, but that was going to ultimately involve killing Silco because Silco didn't want to stop fighting. Since in this story thus far, Silco and Vander are both still alive, that didn't happen. And so there was no like ultimate peace agreement there at the end. So as Vi's like, I'm going to turn myself in, Vander's like, no, you're a protagonist in this story and you can't do that. So Vander decides that he's going to turn himself in for the crimes that happened in Piltover to try and smooth that over. But he is captured by Silco. Enter the plucky teens that have to go rescue him. They've got to go rescue Bardad. And so this is the first time we see those metal punching gloves go into action. So Vi puts them on, and she goes and just starts kicking some ass because she can fight. And so things are actually going pretty okay. Like Vi and her 2 brothers are just like beating up bad guys, and everything goes fine until Powder, who is like intelligent as well, she tries to make a little like explodey bomb using those very unstable Hextech the little blue cores that she stole. And so she detonates some of them, which ends up killing her 2 brothers.
Oh,
holy shit.
Oh my.
Yep. And as this happens and it like throws everyone everywhere and those two brothers die, we see that Silco unleashes a super soldier by injecting him with that purple fluid I said called Shimmer earlier. The super soldier is that mean teen Deckard from early on, but like that only kind of
all
matters.
baned up.
He is all baned up.
Is that the Crash Bandicoot guy with the hook hand or whatever? He's got like a corpse for a head. Nope. All right.
Hey, leave that silence in when you're editing.
It was intentional, and it was just as long as you thought it was, listeners.
All right. Well, I'll be here.
So anyway, Silco injects this rad teen with Shimmer, and he's like, "I'm gonna go punch-size all of you." And so Vander, being like buff rad dad, goes out and is like, "I'm gonna fight this doped up mean teen," and it goes really bad. Really, really, really bad. And so Vander like gets beat to hell and like thrown off the bridge because all good dads get thrown off bridges. And anyway, in his dying moments, he finds some vials of Shimmer and he injects himself with Shimmer. And so he truly becomes like Incredible Hulk Bane and comes up and like saves the day. And then he dies. And so Vi, who was like super pissed at her little sister Powder because this all like went off really poorly because of Powder
for killing their brothers. She's mad about that.
Yeah, a little bit. And so she like punches her, and then Vi calls Powder a Jinx.
Urgot.
Yeah, that's the spider guy.
Oh, never mind.
I hope
guys, we're a mess.
anyone listening to the show who's a true fan of League of Legends, I hope that just Andrew yelling Urgot is rewarding to you. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, she calls her Jinx, which is a whole thing. Yes.
And like Jinx is like a slur. Is that it?
Well, it's supposed to be like you are a Jinx. Like you've jinxed us. You've messed
like
up
the actual
situation.
like the actual real life definition of jinx, not some bullshit.
Yeah.
You know how when you were 6 and it hurt your feelings that your friends called you a jinx because you like
how when you threw an improv detonated advice that killed your 2 adopted brothers in the heat of battle that your older sibling called you Jinx,
and they called you a minor inconvenience.
Yeah. So anyway, that happens, and then at that point. She calls her Jinx, and then she is captured by a boner cop named Marcus. Marcus sucks. We all hate Marcus together. Marcus is the worst. But Marcus throws Vi into the prison. I think it's the Stillwater prison, but it's Piltover's prison. Meanwhile, all this terrible stuff is happening. We find Jace and Victor working on that secret magic. They're doing secret magic fun stuff. And they end up deciding that they are going to call this like technology that leads to magic Hex Tech. And that's what they're going to call it, which is actually kind of a cool name. Like, I actually don't hate that. And
it's fine.
Yeah, they are working on it. And then they also bring in one of the counselors of the city, because the city of Piltover is led by a council, of course it is. This counselor's name is Mel Medarda. Mel is image 7 in the document.
This character definitely looks like she's from the MCU.
Yes. Yeah, Zendaya. Well, actually, it's Letitia Wright, but we don't have her
Letitia Wright.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She's only temporarily in the MCU at this point.
Yeah.
And I think it is in this meeting with Victor and Jace under the like support of Mel. I think this is the first time that Jace swears he won't make weapons. With this technology, but he will change Piltover for the better.
By making weapons.
I would like to raise my hand and pose a question.
You with the hand?
Yeah, I would like to guess that Jace both makes the weapons and does not change Piltover for the better.
But in fact, changes Piltover for the worse.
Well, so I'll give you this. In the end, I'll let you decide if he's made it better or worse.
Okay.
But he does make it better to start.
Okay.
So, like, at least there's an uptick. Whether there's a downtick, you, the viewer, can decide. At the end of all this, Act 1 ends with Silco, the bad guy, finding Powder after the explosions, being abandoned by her sister, everything, and Comforter saying, "We'll show them all." Like he's taking her under his wing.
So now we have like this is basically just The Departed. We've got
it is The Departed. This This is The Departed.
Yeah, so goes our Jack Nicholson.
And that is the end of Act 1. And so that's 3 episodes. So Act 2,
I'm hung up before we move on to Act 2. I understand your intention was to imply that Marcus, the cop, is a boner of a person.
Yeah, he is a boner of a person.
I'm imagining boner police Marcus going around Piltover, arresting people for having erections. Go on. I'm sorry.
You're too horny, sir. You need to come with me.
How you doing, Kyle? You good?
I'm great, Todd.
All right, so Act 2, man, we're gonna talk. I have Marcus in here more times because he's so shitty. Anyway, so Act 2, we have this ambiguous amount of time, but it's a time jump. So
it's wild that there's a time jump on episode 4. That is a bold move.
Well,
that's interesting.
From Act 1 to Act 2.
Yeah, it's Act 1 to Act 2. So I mean, so the thing to note, I don't think they tell you how long it is, but like, young teens become older teens, or teens become young adults, and those who are adults become even more adulty. And
your standard like 3 to 5 year time jump.
Those with boners get even more boners.
Continue, if your boner persists longer than 3 to 5 time jump years, please contact the boner police. Oh boy. Okay, so Andrew had asked if Jace does make Piltover a better place. Hey, in that time jump, Jace has shared hex tech, and now Piltover is even more utopian-like.
I've seen sci-fi, though.
This is still good, because what it's done is it is like, he has been able to largely, I think the biggest thing is they create like teleporters, and so they can transmit. They can transport goods and goods. I don't know. I assume people as well. Goods and services across long distances near instantaneously. And so that is like the big use for hex tech. It is used for like large things like that. And I think like flying ships and stuff like that. Basically big stuff. So we find Victor and Jace, they're still best science friends. They are working to stabilize hex tech so that it doesn't explode like it did in Act 1. Pretty important that hex tech doesn't just explode if it falls kind of hard. So this is a really big deal. Like, they managed to kind of do it, and Jace and Victor are both pumped, and they're excited to show it to all of Piltover. This whole episode also happens, I guess a couple of these episodes, around a celebration of like the founding of Piltover. So it's a big day, and like Jace is now the leader of the council because he's done so many good scientific things that they want him to speak about it. And Victor and Jace are like,
just the perfect event for a villain to attack.
Yeah.
Not to steal the thunder out of, I'm sure, 3 bullet points ahead.
And well, in your point, like, it really doesn't. Well, yeah, there's definitely an attack by the end of like this day. It's so you would think
I'm real fun to watch TV shows with, guys. I'm sorry.
You would think that the dramatic attack would happen while Jace is giving his speech, and that doesn't happen.
But by the end of Piltover Heritage Days, shit's getting messy.
I forget what the celebration's actually called.
It's Piltover Heritage Days.
Is that? I can't tell if Matt's doing a bit or not.
I don't know.
I think I think he's doing a bit, because I don't think it's called that. It's got a name. It's something day. And it doesn't have the word heritage in it, I'm positive. And so anyway...
Piltover Cultural Days?
Stop it. Okay. Jason Victor, they're
First Friday Festival. Piltover's First Friday Festival.
Everyone shut up. Everyone shut up. Jace and Victor are doing science shit. They're like, we're going to change the world. Let's tell everyone today. And Victor's like, Jace, you got to tell people we're going to change everything. And Jace is like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then Heimerdinger rolls in, and he's like, hey, that looks like you could use it as a weapon. You're not going to use it as a weapon, are you? And Jace is like, no, I would never use this as a weapon.
No,
and
it's my whole thing.
Yeah. And Heimerdinger's like, well, you can't tell anyone about that until we've like tested it for, decades to make sure it's safe. And so Jace ultimately gets up to give this big speech about the future of Piltover and how it's going to be revolutionary. And he's basically like, we are so excited to show you the future of Piltover in the future at a different time. And he doesn't
in 8 to 10 years when all the testing is complete.
Yeah. Once we've gotten it through R&D. And so he does not. So he totally flakes on revealing this new technology they have, and Victor's all really sad. We also now find Powder, and that she has now grown into this Harley Quinn style character working for Silco, and she goes by the name Jinx. You can find her as Image 8 in the Imager.
Yeah, I get it.
Yep, and
She looks cool.
Yeah, this character is like model accurate for her League of Legends champion. That is her. She has a gun and big braids and bombs and a rocket launcher.
I do remember one of the first praises I saw about this show was that all the characters are game accurate, and
yes.
like it seems like such a low bar to clear that nothing else has managed to clear until now, that like we are celebrating that such an easy achievement.
Yeah, and we come to find that she is basically working as Silco's like personal assistant, enforcer person. And we see this in action when we find that Silco is smuggling that purple liquid called Shimmer into Piltover. And also he's paying off Piltover police to look the other way while he does it. So everything is super, super cool. There is a flying ship that is bringing it in, smuggled in. And suddenly the job goes sideways when the ship is attacked by a bunch of hoverboarding people that call themselves the Firelights. So when I showed you the hoverboards that Echo was on above, that is the Firelights. It's super cool. Super, super cool.
It's like a gang?
Yeah, they're a gang. We don't know much about them at this point. And so what happens is that there is this whole like throwdown to steal all this shit. And the Firelights are like beaten. We get the Jinx reveal that she is working for Silco. Effectively, at the end of all of this, we do see Jinx steals the stabilized Hextech stone, one of them that Jace and Victor were working on, and she kills some enforcers. And she does this all just to like show Silco that she is great at what she does. Gotta please bad dad.
Gotta please Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson must be pleased. We also get an introduction to a fresh new member of Piltover's Cop Enforcers team. Her name is Caitlin. She is Image 9, I think. I didn't think that she was going to be a character I didn't like. You will not like her in this series. I don't know if this does her justice to her League of Legends character. I didn't go and do like the deep dive on Caitlyn. She is a bummer all the time, and I don't think it's her fault.
She's like the ranger character, right?
Yeah, so she has a gun.
Yeah, she has the power of gun.
She has the power of gun. Yeah, and I mean, her whole story in this is like she again is like a child born into privilege, and I think she's forced into like working for the enforcers because I think it's what her parents did. Just a whole big bummer.
She's Javert.
Javert. And so we get Caitlin as she goes to the Stillwater prison, and her whole point is that she is supposed to go there to interrogate a Silco, one of his goons, to get information on how to find Silco, how to find Jinx. But instead, when she's there, she runs into Vi. So we get an introduction of an adult-ish Vi, and that is Image 10 in our Imgur. And
is this not just a palette swap of Jinx? Like, this just looks like an alt costume for Jinx.
She has the punchy gloves.
Yeah,
and Jinx does bomb things. That's the difference.
I don't understand what your problem is. She's red. She's got red hair. It's totally different than blue hair.
Okay, in defense, her hair and character are very, very different in this show, but they are sisters, so it would make sense that they would look similar.
I won't speak for the whole show, but in this image specifically, the gloves look like the dual discs from Yu-Gi-Oh.
Shit, they super do.
They look rad because they're not like from this picture. I don't think it's fair to. They're like gauntlets. Like they go all the way up to their elbows.
Like up.
And so this picture kind of gives away some of the game here that she won't put those on until I think it's episode 8. Okay. But it's definitely like it's a throwback to, you know, her adopted father like had punchy gloves. She ends up getting punchy gloves. Whole thing. Anyway, so Caitlin decides that she's going to work with Vi because Vi has extensive experience in the Undercity, and if there's a chance that she can like find her sister, like that's awesome. And so
now it's Batman. It's
Yeah,
like
well,
a Batman and Gordon sort of situation.
I would say it's Batman Gordon, but like, do we hate Gordon? Because I hate Caitlyn. So
Gotcha.
No, Caitlyn just gets such a short end of the stick in this story that, like, since she has been brought in as a Piltover enforcer, which she doesn't really want to do, everyone hates her who has a reason to hate the Piltover enforcers. There's a whole, like, there's probably something to that, but anyway.
Justice for Caitlyn. Hashtag
Good
justice
cops
for Caitlyn.
quit, Todd. I don't know.
Good cops do quit, Matt. That is spot on. So we've got Vi and Caitlyn. They decide they're going to do this buddy cop bit on the trail for Jinx. We also find out that douchey boner cop Marcus is now the sheriff, and we also find out that, go figure, he is on Silco's payroll. I put the image in here of Marcus. He is image 11. I want to make it note, he can eat my whole ass. Marcus can just go straight on to hell.
If I referenced the bit from Full Metal Alchemist, it's a terrible day for rain, does that do it for anybody?
I get that.
Okay.
I maybe know what you're talking about.
I have not seen Full Metal Alchemist, but I know that. That. Like,
this looks very much like the scene in the same framing when Roy Mustang is standing at his buddy that gets killed halfway through the series funeral, and it's like just this exact shot. He's wearing the same thing, and his face is down, and Roy Mustang says it's a terrible day for rain because he's crying. He's like a big macho dude. Anyway,
is Roy Mustang the one that makes fire with his
He's
gloves?
the guy that snaps his fingers
so
and
dope.
fire appears. We should talk about Full Metal Alchemist later.
At some point.
Anyway,
I want to say I'm really disappointed that Marcus's promotion to sheriff does not come with a big stupid hat, because every promotion to sheriff should come with a big stupid hat.
Caitlyn wears the big stupid hat. Don't worry.
oh man,
Not out of rank, just
you
out
really
of
don't
desire.
like Caitlyn in this series, huh?
Her hat is big and stupid. That's just objective.
Her hat on here makes her look like a bishop or something, like a woman of the cloth.
Listen,
It looks like a marching band.
She
uniform.
does look like a white mage archetype.
Okay, Caitlyn gets the short end of the stick, and I'll get there when I get there. So we also get a cut here that, that's right. So Marcus, he can eat my whole ass. Anyway, he wants to pin blame.
Get that in one more time.
Yeah. He wants to pin blame on the explosions and the stolen shimmer and everything else on anyone and anywhere but Silco. He does not want to blame the guy who is paying him. So that's an important bit.
Is Silco is he a known to the community villain, or is he like Norman Osborn, where he's like he's got some legitimate side to his business and he puts off real sinister energy, but whenever you go to criticize him, but Oscorp has done so much good. Look at all the jobs Oscorp has made.
Silco is well known in the Undercity, and I'm pretty sure at least like the council of Piltover knows that Silco is like the bad guy of the Undercity. I'm pretty sure they have an idea. I don't know if like the layman of Piltover,
the enforcers then would know Silco as a mob boss.
Yes, that is fair.
So Marcus is in fact like showing his whole ass by saying like, no, it wasn't the mob boss. The mob boss couldn't possibly have been tied up. And okay, got it.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, more or less. And of course, like the other enforcers, like, well, who do we know? Who could it be? And Marcus is like, I don't know, but it probably wasn't him. And so anyway, while this is happening, Silco, who he wants Jinx to use that Hextech orb she managed to steal to make weapons, because Hextech is going to be used to make weapons.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
But Jinx won't, because she has this big fear of her childhood trauma, because if you remember, she stole the unstable Hextech gems that blew up her brothers.
Yeah.
And like kind of killed her dad and separated her from her sister. Then there's this whole like Silco does this like weird like baptism thing with her where he's like, no, you will be reborn as Jinx, like nothing will hold you back. You will help build what we have down here. Nothing that Silco does is sexual towards Jinx. I want to make that clear.
This really is, I mean, she's just Harley Quinn, right?
But
like,
yeah.
This
But
sounds like this is very Harley Quinn.
nothing Silco does in this entire story I mean, I think eventually, like, he says he loves her, but like it does feel fatherly, and I'm pretty sure he kisses her on like the side of the head at one point. Not like even cheek, but like temple.
It's like a stepdad sort of situation.
It's nothing sexual, but it doesn't not feel sexual.
The fact that you have to keep
I
clarifying
want to make that clear.
makes me think that's not the case.
I know what you mean, though. There's definitely that, like, it's not sexual, but every interaction is also very charged with sexual energy, and you can't explain it. Question: does he baptize her in Shimmer?
No.
Okay.
However, that may be something that happens later. Kyle, it's fun to watch movies with.
Does she leap
Fall
off of into a giant vat of
that'd
Shimmer?
That'd have been too on the nose. So what we do find, though, is that Jace, after all of this has happened, he decides to like partner more closely with the Piltover Council, and he's like, I want you all to have a say in what we do with Hex Tech, because I don't want to be tempted to make weapons, because like that would be really bad if we made weapons with this, right?
And certainly nothing stops the making of weapons like bureaucracy.
Yeah, right. And he also then starts a relationship with that council member, Mel. Mel, who was the first one that was like, no, like you guys should keep doing this. And like Mel's not evil. But Mel throughout all of this is like, hey, it's really dangerous if like these become weapons. So we got to really make sure we don't make these into weapons.
You know how you keep saying don't make them into weapons?
Yeah.
Don't make them into weapons.
Yeah.
It's like when you say like don't think about giraffes, you're gonna think about a giraffe.
Giraffes. Also, this whole time, his partner and friend Victor is definitely slowly dying, and is kind of like, hey, Hextech could probably like save my life, right? Like maybe we use it for that. And Jason's like, yeah, that sounds like a better use than weapons, because we definitely won't use it for weapons, but maybe we can use it to save your life.
And then we can use it to turn everyone into lizards.
Well, the next episode features Victor collapsing from his illness because he is dying. And Jace definitely needs to stop being a nerd and uses Hex Tech to save his friend and, you know, probably make weapons. So anyway,
to save his friend, ... and also make weapons. That was really funny.
Okay, so his friend is like definitely dying. Like he is. I don't think they ever talk about what Victor's ailment is, but he's definitely dying. And so now knowing that like that is escalated to a different level, Jace and Victor make a thing called the Hex Core. So we've got these like Hex Gems, which are things that can power stuff. But then they build this like Hex Core, this pulsating bit of Hex technology that is able to react with organic matter. And so what we've been doing is we've been powering machines, and now it's like, oh, we can use
now we're going to power people.
Mm-hmm. And so anyway, Heimerdinger is a big wet blanket, and he walks in and he's like, we got to destroy that? That is bad. Dark mages of the past that have ruined societies have used magic like that. We cannot do this.
And Jace says, no, it's like a suit of armor for the world.
And so, And so Jace has Heimerdinger voted off the council. Jace is like, you're out of here, old man.
I'm imagining it plays out much differently, but I want that scene to be like a smash cut to like Heimerdinger gives his warning and then smash cut, gavel hit, and Heimerdinger's been voted off the council.
Yeah, we don't see Heimerdinger again until he's like walking the shady Undercity alone in the rain. Like it's like it's a whole thing.
Todd, can you give your best
man.
approximation of Heimerdinger's voice
so
I can hear this in my mind's theater?
It's like it's a high pitched like
yes, I knew it was
a high pitched old man scientist, but not like senile old man scientist, but like, I'm actually very smart. You should listen to me.
No.
Yes, that's very good.
Okay, so it's exactly how I imagined it. Great.
How do you think Heimerdinger smells standing in the rain like that? That poor little dog man.
He's a wet yordle. So yeah, Jace has him voted off because he's a nerd, and so he gets kicked out of there. So we also then get a scene at this point. So like Victor obviously wants to use technology to be better. And Jace is like, yeah, we can probably do that, but I don't know. My mentor just said no, but I kicked him off the council, so who's to say? So Victor goes and meets with his childhood mentor, who happens to be a scientist who's working for Silco. And I don't think we ever get his name in the show, but he is a champion named Singed from League of Legends.
Singed, okay.
Yes, so he is Image 12. Singed doesn't necessarily look like this when we see him, but he has
seems like
been,
a pretty trustworthy guy.
Yeah, well,
to be a mentor.
when we first meet Singed, he's just like basic ass bald crazy scientist, and then when we see him later after the time jump, he's like scarred from experiment scientist who has like
from
a
whatever
Yeah.
gave him his moniker Singed, I'm
Singed,
sure. Yeah.
But he is absolutely a mad scientist, and so when Victor is like, childhood mentor, you taught me how science can change everything. Can you make me better? Singed is like, hell yeah, I'm a mad scientist. Let's fucking go. And so this is important. So listeners, I have a bullet point in here. Hey Todd, talk about the fucked up backstory of Singed Victor and was supposed to be Shimmer in here. And so we find out exactly what Shimmer is right about now. This is like episode, let's call it 5 or 6. So we get a background of Victor, who is like, he's walking with a crutch and he's got kind of like a limp foot, and he happens upon the mad scientist currently known as Singed. And Singed is like, well, like, why don't you not do that? Be like, science can heal you. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, science has this endless possibility. And so Singed is not like this wild, crazy dude yet, but he is sitting next to this like beautiful. Okay, so if you think of the dragon from Dragon's Tale, Toothless.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's not Dragon's Tale, that's How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, that's the one. That's what I said. What'd you say? Dragon from How to Train Your Dragon, Toothless. Imagine that, but it's more like a big salamander and it's purple.
Okay. So Randall from Monster University.
Kind of Randall from Monster University.
I was going to say Spyro.
It's like a chubby salamander dragon. That's the best I got for you, and it's wonderful. It is this beautiful thing.
It's our animal character.
It's the animal
to
character.
sell toys. Yeah.
Well, hold on to that thought, because Singed is like, this is a beautiful such and such creature. Its purple mutation makes it special. And
I must murder it.
Well, young Victor is like, oh, like that's really great. And Singed, without looking at him, goes, it's dying. And Victor's like, shit. And Singed is like, the mutation must survive, though. We need it. Fast forward to this moment where adult Victor is hanging out with like mad scientist Singed. You find this like purple giant salamander is hooked up to tubes and shit in a vat that they are siphoning that purple juice from him called Shimmer. And so we find out that Shimmer is being suctioned out of this like
adorable salamander.
Oh, it's
creature.
A terrible moment. I haven't forgiven Arcane for what
Todd
it did
wept.
to me. Yeah, so they really drive home like how depraved Singed is, but he's like, yeah, dope, we're gonna do science shit to you and you're gonna probably be better. I don't know.
You're not gonna like much of it.
No. And so we have Silco, and he gets his dirty boner cop Marcus to take Caitlyn and Vi out. And so that's like this whole, that's the plot line here. It is this whole thing like bad cop is gonna try and take out, good cop and punch girl. And so there is this big escape moment that Vi, she spots Jinx, because Jinx now knows of Vi's existence here in the Undercity. And so they have this, like, they reunite on this rooftop or whatever. And it's a really dramatic, like, cool moment. But then at that point, Caitlyn shows up in the background. And that triggers Jinx because, like, ACAB to the Piltover
You're working with the
what I've gotten here.
fuzz. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like, how can I trust you? You're working with the bad guys because for so many reasons, Piltover police are bad here. And then there's this whole like drastic moment where she's like, I'm gonna murder her, and Vi's like, please don't, you don't understand. And then those like hoverboard flying firelights showed up because they're like, now we're here and you forgot we're a thing. And they steal the Hextech gemstone that Jinx had taken, and they also kidnap Caitlyn and Vi. And that leads us to this huge cliffhanger at the end of Act 2. And so we'll get back to that and find out the fate of our main characters right after this break.
Hey, are you ready for Mephisto to be in this show? Because he's gonna be in this show.
From the nerds that debate this comes The Plus is Loose, a podcast where we break down every episode of the latest MCU shows being aired on Disney+.
Dottie was going to be the embodiment of Mephisto.
I feel very strongly that whether it was Mephisto,
I do not think this is Mephisto.
This is Mephisto.
I'm Mephisto, you Mephisto. I'm going to keep saying Mephisto. Or Mephisto, shards of Mephisto.
Mephisto.
It's Mephisto. How many times can we say Mephisto in this podcast?
Each week, we talk through plot details, Easter eggs, and our own predictions for how the shows will end.
Her husband, who she talks about but we've yet to see, is likely going to be Mephisto.
He, she, me, Mephisto.
The mailman is Mephisto.
Everyone is Mephisto.
Mephistology, the study of Mephisto.
Okay, so let's talk about this Mephisto bit.
Schindler's Mephisto.
Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you download podcasts.
What we didn't get were any Mephisto sightings.
I'll be at the bar drinking a beer and waiting for Mephisto to show up.
All right, and we're back. So we just wrapped Act 2 of Arcane, and now we're entering the third act, Act 3, episodes 7 through 9. And here is where shit pops off, because we've kind of had like 3 different storylines all going, and they're all just going to like collide right here. So we find, we have Vi and Caitlin, and they're like tied up, and we find out that the Firelights are actually led by Vi's old friend Echo, that guy from early on who was the very
you told
first...
us that like 2 episodes ago, Tom.
Yep, that was important. Yep. And so his character model is dope in the game. He is in the album. He has a hoverboard. It's super cool.
Is that the guy with the Keyblade?
Yes.
Keyblade.
Does he have a Keyblade?
So
He
far,
does have pretty much a Keyblade.
So far,
Oh,
the
it looks
Firelights.
like a Keyblade. Absolutely.
So far, the Firelights are my favorite. So far, I want
Firelights are
a
dope.
whole show of hoverboard gang crimes.
Yeah. I'm gonna talk more about Echo here in a second, because his storyline through the rest of this is dope. That he is the force for good. Him and the Firelights are the force for good in the Undercity. Like they have this little like refuge. It's super cool. So he leads the rebellion. He hates Piltover enforcers. And he warns V that Powder is now gone. It's not Powder, it's just Jinx, and that she's doing Silco's dirty work. Hey, remember how I said how he hates Piltover enforcers? Well, Caitlyn's still there, and that creates this great distrust, and like, again, another arc where they have to be like, no, Caitlyn's better. And you're like, is she? And so, and like,
we promise she's the only good cop.
yeah, she's good. It's fine. And so now we get to see, we're back with Jace. And so he is finally convinced to think about making weapons with Hex Tech for fear of a war with the Undercity.
Perfect.
Since the Undercity's actions, he is now thinking like, well, maybe I'm gonna have to make weapons. Am I gonna have to make
think
weapons?
that he said that with like a little bit of a smirk, like maybe
A devilish twist.
Oh no, I'll have to
Yeah.
make weapons.
We also then see Singed. He convinces Victor to do an experiment with Shimmer to try and heal his body so that it can then accept the Hex Core. That like thing that pulsates and can interact with organic material.
You lost me a little bit on accept the Hex Core.
Yes.
You must observe the orb. So like it actually works too. So I mean, when he experiments with Shimmer, we actually get a cut at one point of Victor like hobbling with his crutch and then dropping his crutch and then going into a jog and then going into a run. It's
The
that
Willy
whole
Wonka
thing.
flip into a stand-up trick.
Yeah. And so we have Vi, Caitlin, and Echo now. They have a meetup with the Crooked Cop and big thin blue line fan Marcus. They meet up with him on the bridge between the 2 major cities. And this is like the first time shit super goes off. And so again, we have one side that is the Firelights, Vi, and the Piltover, Captain Caitlin, and then Piltover police on the other side of Marcus. Jinx is watching this whole thing. And Jinx, who has been like back and forth between like, I want to trust my sister, I want to help my sister is working with Piltover police, they're bad. Jinx watches this whole thing and effectively sees her sister brokering a talk between a bunch of Piltover police and the Firelights who have attacked her twice. So Jinx is like, oh, well, never mind. Fuck this. This is bad. And so she releases a swarm of exploding lightning bugs that like descend upon all of them, and the explosion kills Marcus.
Oh,
And
all right.
So boner champ Marcus is dead. Big men's right activist Marcus is dead, and it wounds Caitlyn. And so there's this whole moment where like Vi, who like Caitlyn's been trying to help Vi, and Vi's been trying to help Caitlyn. So Vi's like, I got to get Caitlyn out of here. And so there's a showdown with Jinx and Echo and Vi and Caitlyn. And Echo turns around and looks at Vi and Caitlyn and is like, get her out of here. I'll hold her off.
Now,
and
Todd,
you're like,
of the two 4-man square offs on a rooftop in a city, featuring a character named Echo that came out in 2021, where does this rank?
This is one of two, top one of two.
Okay.
Because this one, they set it to music and it's really cool. This is probably, I think, the coolest visual fight they do, because Echo and Jinx like square off, and Jinx remembers Echo and is like, oh, like I thought you were dead. And he's like, you wouldn't be so lucky, or something like that. And so their fight, as it pops off, keeps flashing back and forth between looking at them as adults with like guns and weapons to them playing like a baseball game as kids. And so at one point, like, instead of Jinx shooting bullets, she like instead of her throwing a bomb, she like throws a baseball. And so Echo, like, baseball slides underneath the ball and doesn't get hit. And there's this moment where she's like shooting him with a squirt gun or whatever the visual is, and she hits him right in the chest. And so it looks like there's just like a paint splatter on his chest. And then you find out what Echo's like special power is, that he can reverse time. And so he like,
what?
Yeah, that's his champion power. I don't know how he gets it in this
buried
world.
the lead there, Todd.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I thought his power was having a keyblade.
And a hoverboard. Yeah,
those are red herrings. But yeah, like he pulls out like a pocket watch at the start of the fight. It's super super dope. If I can find the link to the fight itself and the YouTube of that, I'll put it in here. Anyway, like Echo definitely beats Jinx, like beats her down. And there's this whole moment where like Vi and Caitlyn escape. And then in the end, Jinx releases like a bomb from her hand that like blows up on the bridge. And that allows Jinx to steal the Hextech gemstone that she came there to get from Echo. I'm pretty sure there's also a bunch of soldiers that, I guess she already killed a bunch of the soldiers with the lightning bugs. So Jinx has successfully killed just a shit ton of Piltover police, and someone's going to be mad about that. We find Silco, who ends up finding this wounded Jinx, and he like takes Jinx to Singed, who again, we don't ever know is Singed. I think that's important to say. Like, it's not, mad scientist Dr. Singed, please help us. It's just, they just never say his name. And so Silco shows up with like a badly beaten Jinx and is like, you have to save her. And Singed is like, well, death is sometimes a release for things that feel unfortunate. And he's like, do whatever you can to save her. And the whole way they actually do it is Singed like sedates Silco because he thinks that Silco won't be able to handle the science that he has to do to Jinx. And so you had asked if Jinx falls into the vat of Shimmer. No, but she gets injected with a bunch of it.
Oh, okay.
It's more like a trial of the grasses.
It is a trial of the grasses
Look at you
situation.
and your Witcher references.
That's really good. So the thing that sucks, like this super sucks here, is that while she's being like experimented on, she's hallucinating that it's not this doctor doing the experiments on her, but that it is Vi and Caitlyn that are hurting her. Like, the whole thing super sucks.
So,
oh, wow.
So they're going for she's like the misunderstood villain. She's going to only do villainous things here on out, but we're all going to be sad about it.
Is this League of Legends Wicked? Is that what's happening right now?
Everything about Jinx is like, I mean, she's definitely been like mentally beaten down and has this like tragic childhood memory situation. And Silco's the first thing that, she lost her parents, she lost her family. Silco's the only thing that's shown her passion or compassion. And like, here is the last, like the nail in the coffin of like she is losing her good humanity in this. And it sucks. It sucks a lot.
Yeah.
And so I also realize, as I'm putting together the notes at this point, I forgot to put a picture of Silco in here. So here he is. He is the last, I think, image in the album.
He looks like a lizard.
Yeah,
He kind of looks like a lizard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's Johnny antagonist. Like, there you are.
So there's a whole point back in Piltover where Mel Medarda, who is that like pseudo love interest for Jace, her mom shows up because she's from a different country, and I didn't know that. This came so late that I was like, why would I care about this person? She is this like massive boulder of a human who is nothing but muscle. And she basically tells Jace, like, you're weak for not standing up against the Undercity. You should make weapons and go fight them. Yeah, because, like, effectively the council is like, the Undercity has struck. Like, Silco had his armed enforcer, Jinx, kill a bunch of people from Piltover. What are you going to do? And Jace is like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so this, like, third act entering, character from Athens is like, you should go to war. War will solve this. And so, that sucks. It super sucks that that's what happens and that's how it goes. But, like, it gets to Jace because Jace is like, I guess weapons are the only thing I can do now.
Yeah, the suit of armor over the world, of course.
Yeah.
We cut to Victor. Victor experiments with the Hex Core and is given this, like, brand new power. So he's able to, like, interact with the Hex Core and he's being transformed. It is heartbreaking what happens in the cut back and forth of him reaching out for the Hex Core and, like, absorbing its power. His, like, best friend / assistant / love interest woman is, like, walking down the hallway towards him and is, like, reading from her diary, like, holding it in her chest. And she's like, Victor, I don't know how to tell you this. I should have said it a long time ago. No. Victor, I think about you constantly. Like, I've always wanted to tell you this. And, like, she opens the door and she's seeing Victor being, like, drug into this Hex Core. And so she runs over and she's, like, pulling him away, and she's pulling him away, and she's pulling him away. And then the Hex Core, like, erupts, and it vaporizes her.
Ooh.
And, yeah, I have in my notes, this also sucks. Like, it's really tough to watch as Victor, like, he recovers from the Hex Core and sees, like, just ashes on the ground of this person who cares about him. And this is kind of stupid. So, like, maybe it just gets rid of organic material. That's the thing. But her diary is still there, so he can see all the things she had written.
Course.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a scene where, like, Jace or Victor, like, dumps her ashes out into the water, and he's like, it's the only, like, off this big bridge, and he's like, it's the only place I knew where to take you. And he kind of, like, looks down at the water for a minute, and he's about to step off and, like, kill himself, and Jace shows up behind him and is like, hey man, am I interrupting something? And, like, Victor comes back and he's like, oh, I just needed a minute. And, like, they're reminiscing about their childhood and about how neither of them are the same person they were when they were younger. And this moment does not suck. This moment specifically does not suck. It is very, very good.
Cool.
This next part doesn't make sense, but it just happens. Vi shows up and meets Jace. There is no, like, I remember watching it and being like, how did you end up here? And it had the same energy as, like, Wonder Woman 84, where, like, why is this happening? Who are you and why are you here? But anyway, it happens. It happens, and I guess it saved us 10 minutes of exposition to get there. But Vi ends up in Jace's lab, where Jace is working on something. He's trying to build something. And Vi is like, I'm going to take down Silco and save my sister. And Jace is like, the most important thing here is taking down Silco. I don't care about anything else. And she's like, oh, so we agree. And she, like, the gauntlets that she has are called Atlas gloves or Atlas gauntlets. And they're introduced in, like, literally episode 4 as they're gloves that miners can use to break rocks easier. And so she slips on 2 of them and she's like, then let's go and do it. And they do, like, the Predator handshake. And so here's where we find out what, let me see here. Oh yeah. So here's where we find out what Jace is working on. Jace is making a hammer gun, a giant hammer gun.
Wait, stop right now. I have to ask, is this a gun that shoots hammers or a hammer that is also a gun?
It is a hammer that is also a gun. So Jace, when he was introduced to League of Legends... Yeah.
Me neither.
When Jace is introduced into League of Legends as the character, it's this giant, like, sledgehammer that like shoots things. Not hammers. It's a sledgehammer that shoots energy. And so this is why in the very beginning when he's like, my family, they made hammers. That's why like everyone who knows, everyone who knows is like, you what? Yeah, so here it is. Episode 8 is when he makes weapons with his forbidden magic powers. And so anyway, somewhere along this time, Jinx also manages to capture Caitlyn because she's like wounded. Vi, I guess this is important. So in this point that they do a sick raid using these punch gloves and hammer gun. They show up at a shimmer harvesting facility.
Is there a hoverboard involved?
Not yet. No hoverboards here yet.
Okay.
They do a sweet raid and it is awesome. Like the security for the shimmer facility is basically these people wear helmets, and when they press the panic button, the helmets inject them with shimmer and they become super soldiers. Yeah, whoa. It's rad. It's a really rad moment.
That's cool.
Anyway, in this like huge fight, at the end of it, Jinx somehow captures Caitlyn, and Vi also gets captured. I forget why she gets captured, how it happens. I don't know. Something happens. Vi has this like whole side story too, where she's fighting one of Silco's enforcers, and Silco also has people that work underneath him that are trying to betray him. It's not really relevant to the overarching story, but Vi has...
They planned the show as a 10-episode series, and Netflix told them to make it 3, 3, and 3, and
yeah.
This is where they cut content, I bet.
Yeah, and like the fight with Vi and this like Silco's right-hand person is really, really cool, but that's probably where she got captured. Anyway, so that dope raid I was talking about that Jace and Vi did, at the very last thing that happens in it is Jace is just like shooting magic like explosions out of his hammer, and he kills a kid. Yeah, so we find out that Jace killed a guy. Was that a hammer? And so we find out that like working in the shimmer factory was a bunch of kids. And so so like Silco had like children working in the factory, which sucks. The whole thing sucks.
Explicitly not in a sexual way.
Not in a not sexual way either.
Well, and so Jace accidentally kills a kid at the end and is like, I no longer want war. My weapons have made war.
Oh, God.
You're like, Jace, it took you 7 episodes to get here, and then the 8th one, you figured it out.
You made a gun hammer. You don't get to backpedal from gun hammer, you fucking nerd.
Well, and so Jace decides at this point that he wants to broker peace. And so at the beginning of episode 9, I think it is, Jace is like looking out over the waters of, Piltover, and Silco just like slinks up next to him and is like, so like, war, you've seen how that goes, huh? And Jace is like, war is bad. My weapons or my technology should have never been used for war. And Silco's like,
I should have never made these weapons.
Silco's like, fine, then let's have peace. I'm like, here's my agreement, and he hands him like an agreement of terms and conditions. And basically he's like, I want the Undercity to be the freed, independent city of Zaun. Like it is its own thing. It does what it wants. We are not listening to you anymore. And there's like some other shit too. And Jace is like, all right, then you can't produce shimmer anymore. It's poison. It's killing people. And Silco kind of laughs. He's like, haha, you already kind of helped me that. By destroying that plant, you've taken down 33% of my production. The rest will be easy. And Jace also says, fine, you also have to turn over Jinx because she has to pay for all the blood that's on her hands because she attacked Piltover. And Silco, who like loves Jinx, is like, well, no, I can't. Like, wouldn't it make more sense if you wanted to take me? And Jace is like, I can't broker peace with you and then also have you in my jails. That doesn't work. Like, I can't capture you and then have you pay the price. It's actually kind of like a smart moment that, like, there's obviously no reason that, Piltover wants to capture Jinx until he plays that out. And you're like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a good angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so effectively he's like, fine, like that's the terms and conditions and we're doing it. So we get to this cutaway where Silco is sitting outside of a statue of Vander. Remember Vander? Tough rad dad from the beginning?
Bar Daddy?
Bar Daddy. Yeah, he's like talking to the statue of Vander, and it also shows them the backstory, like the moment that Vander like tried to kill Silco to stop him from attacking Piltover and broke her peace, and it shows how like Silco was able to like break away and like stabbed Vander and like got away or whatever. And so Silco is here monologuing to this statue, and he actually calls him brother at one point, but I'm not sure if that's literal or metaphorical. It's not really pointed out. I don't know.
If it is, you didn't find it.
No, I didn't catch it. And in this moment, he's like, Piltover wants peace, but I'll have to turn in Jinx to get it. Like, we could have had that before and we didn't. Is this our opportunity to get it right? Well, it pans around and Jinx is sitting on the front of the statue, listening to all of this. Whoops. Oh. And so she kidnaps him. And so everyone wakes up at what is Jinx Twisted Tea Party. Like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party is going on. It's super Harley Quinn energy here. And so we have Vi, who is awake, and we have Silco, who's awake at the other end of the table. And then there's like stuffed dolls that kind of look like her two brothers that are dead. It's a whole very twisted scene.
Sure.
Yeah. And she says to Vi, like, oh, wow, your friend isn't here. I guess we're just missing one person. And she like brings this like silver platter over to the table that you think that Caitlyn's head is going to be in the silver platter. But like, if you've played League of Legends, you know Caitlyn's a character that is alive and well. And so anyway, it's not. Caitlyn's just in a different chair. And so in this moment, basically, Vi is like, you're not Jinx, you're Powder, like, you have to come home, we need you. And Silco is like, they are just trying to fill your brain with lies, I'm the only one that would help you. I was going to sabotage peace for you. Like, just kill them, you don't need them. And the whole time she's like, I actually just want to kill Caitlyn, she's the person I hate. And you're like, damn it, Caitlyn. Caitlyn breaks free at one point and like almost gets shot, it's a whole thing. There's this whole dramatic moment where Jinx, Jinx says that she accepts she's gone too far and she'll never be Powder again, but she'll always be Jinx, and she just starts unloading her minigun. And like at that point, you're like, well, who's gonna end up shot? It's Silco. She shoots Silco, and it's her way of being like, I'm free from you, and it's also very sad for her. And so the last thing that we see in this show is that she takes that like Hextech gemstone that she had stolen so long ago, she loads it into her rocket launcher and like fires a rocket towards Piltover, where this rocket cinematically is flying towards Piltover just right in the room at the same time that Jace is standing in front of the council telling them that he has brokered peace with Zahn and that they are independent and he'll respect their independence. And like, as he says that, everything slows down and all the council members are like screaming at him and kicking him off the council and throwing papers and yelling. And you see this rocket slowly approach the window that they're all in. And like, as it makes impact, credits roll.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a very good ending.
Yeah, it's a good cliffhanger-y ending.
Yeah, so that is 9 episodes, 3 acts of Arcane. And we've got some more things to hit, but like before we get to that, just what are your brief takes on knowing nothing about Arcane except for Jinx had Harley Quinn energy? What are your quick takes coming out of that?
Yeah, when everything came together, I was like, okay, this is cool. I think for a lot of it, I'll be honest, my reaction was similar to my reaction to the original League of Legends Slayer text we did, which is like, okay, I've heard all this before. This just feels kind of like a Kids Bop remix of a bunch of other like sci-fi fantasy stories. And I wasn't like, I was kind of like marginally interested, but I'll be honest, once we hit third act, I was like, this is legitimately cool. Like I would consider watching this.
And I'll definitely say too that, I mean, the first 3 acts being set in this like pre-time before it gets to the main time or whatever, I think that like that sets the stage and is gripping enough that you follow it. Once you're done with your takes, I'll tell you the stupidest part of everything that I didn't mention. Because I wanted you to say good things before I do that. But what I will say is like the third act, especially like starting with episode 8, it pops off and it is so good.
my take is I am very excited to watch this whenever the League of Legends lore grips me more than like a little bit more. Like it sounds it all sounds very good. If I ever get into League of Legends, this will be the first thing I consume after that. It sounds great.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't know. I mean, like, I am a weekend of Maddie being gone for a work trip away from watching Arcane.
Yeah.
Not that that means anything. It's just, it's the next. I, as the great consumer of content that I consider myself to be, must ingest this content. And this conversation today has made me a little more excited to do it.
You who has also seen every Netflix Marvel episode and every less than stellar Marvel property movie.
Yep,
you
got
great
it.
consumer of only great content.
Yeah, so I have never been super into League of Legends because it's just kind of like a nothing soup, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought that, like, the character designs are cool, some of the characters are cool, some of the backstory is interesting, but, like, as a whole, it's soup, and I don't really like soup. But Arcane sounds a little bit less like soup and a little bit more like sandwich, and so I think that I could probably get into Arcane, but will it ever make me care more about League of Legends? No.
I think that's fair. I'll say it now so I don't have to say it later. I think my biggest critique with the first flavor text was that, like, there's tons of really good lore, but I don't really care for the League of Legends game itself. And so I don't think I'll ever play the actual game again. However, I will consume lore like this. Like, I would consume like a games that build around the lore, because I think they've done a good job curating stories like this.
You would play an adventure game. It's set in the League of Legends universe.
I think so. I think I would play. I don't love MOBAs like I used to. Even when Pokemon Unite came out, I like injected it straight into my veins for a month, and then I didn't touch it again. And so that's kind of where I'm at on this. I want to tell you guys about the shittiest part of Arcane, because I think this is important now that you've said like some favorable things. So I'm going to say this first thing, and this is not the shittiest part. The intro song is done by Imagine Dragons. That's not the shittiest part.
Right.
It's not the shittiest part. Not the shittiest part.
It's not that bad, though. I've heard the intro. It's pretty good.
It's not that bad. I want to drive that point home. However, about halfway through the series, and I forget what episode, there is a part where it is basically a minute and a half of Imagine Dragons music video, where they actually put the characters from Imagine Dragons in the Undercity as part of this like walking montage playing their music. And that sucks. And I'm sure it was part of the agreement to get their song in the intro.
Is it better or worse than the Ed Sheeran cameo?
I was just going to bring up the Ed Sheeran episode of Game of Thrones. Everybody's favorite episode of Game of Thrones, when Ed Sheeran appears and is singing songs by a bonfire.
I know that moment happened, but I did not watch it, so I have to say this reigns supreme. It was so bad, and I would challenge anyone who watched that, unless you are like the biggest Imagine Dragons fan on earth, and if you are, fight me. This is such a bad moment that I watched it, and I was on the airplane when I watched it, and I was like, ugh. All right, well that's done.
If you are someone who was genuinely excited to see Imagine Dragons appear in this show, contact us. We'll have you fight Todd.
We'll film it.
We'll put you in contact with Todd for your fight.
We'll stream it on our Patreon Discord. All right, so that wraps up all of Arcane. Now, one of the other things that Zakix did want us to make sure that we hit was to hit some of the like fun champion skins and just some of the fun story lore that goes on in League of Legends. So we picked some other ones that we didn't hit last time, and I am pretty pumped for a couple of these. So technically we have, I think, 5 different hero stories here, but one and then kind of the other ones combined. So the first one is Fiddlesticks, the Ancient Fear, which is
What? This thing's called Fiddlesticks?
Yeah,
Hold
right.
the phone.
So Fiddlesticks. So this champion is dope.
Oh!
FYI. Yeah, doesn't look like it looked like when we played it, Andrew.
No, I remember him being like a silly scarecrow.
A goofy scarecrow that would
Yeah,
T-pose and
he looks like
frolic
fucking
around.
Anima from Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, so his backstory is like paragraphs long because I think they just decided they have something incredibly cool here and they went wild on it. But his backstory, their backstory is designed that it expressive. I don't want to gender the scarecrow.
Yeah, that's fair.
It is designed to expressly label them as an actual embodiment of fear. They label it as something that has always existed and predates any horror story that it revolves around.
Oh.
And there's a really good quote here. I'm gonna read it because like it's just so dope. Because everything in there is like, he's whispers on the wind. No one knows where it came from. Every continent has their horror stories of this scarecrow that shows up and murders people, but no one knows where it came from. But here's this quote: "Travelers vanish from the old footpaths. Guard patrols fail to report back from edges of the kingdom, and wild-eyed survivors claw at their faces from the safety of roadside taverns, wailing of crows that aren't crows, sounds that aren't sounds, and a lopsided horror in the shape of a scarecrow that croaks in the stolen voices of the dead."
Okay,
It's
Yeah.
that's
dope.
good.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
right?
That's cool.
That is the best Pokedex entry.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like I said, when we played a decade ago or more, Fiddlesticks was like hobbling around as a goofy scarecrow.
He was more like Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, I'm looking at him now.
Candlestick Jack, whatever.
What?
Candlejack.
Candlejack, the
From-
freakazoid.
Yes, the freakazoid joke. You
Yeah.
say his
Wow.
name, he snatches you away
That's
in
a
the night.
pull.
That's just for me and Todd.
Clearly.
The other one that I definitely wanted to hit on here is like a good example of how League of Legends, I think, has taken some great, well, I don't want to say League of Legends, Riot has taken great lengths with League of Legends to intertwine characters. And so there's a backstory involving 4 different heroes: Graves, Gangplank, Misfortune, and Twisted Fate, whose titles are the Outlaw, the Saltwater Scourge, the Bounty Hunter, and the Card Master, respectively. And so their entire storylines all coincide one another, like their entire backstories, which is super cool because Twisted Fate was like one of the first heroes. Like he's Gambit. He's League of Legends Gambit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
His whole thing is like, he's a character that at least when we played, like, would throw different cards, different things, blah blah blah. Whereas, Graves didn't show up till later, and I think Misfortune's been around for a long time. So all 4 of these characters, these champions, intertwine. And so if you want to pick with one of them to start, I think Graves is a good one to start. So Graves is like the John Marston, a la Red Dead Redemption of the League of Legends lore for all intents and purposes. So he's an outlaw. That's what he does. He does outlaw shit. He gambles.
He outlaws.
He outlaws. We outlaws. One evening, and this is kind of campy, but one evening he came across a, quote, trickster in an illegal high-stakes game, which that trickster happened to be known as a character named Twisted Fate, who, like I said, more or less Gambit for League of Legends.
Who also looks like John Marston.
Also, everyone is John Marston.
They're all John Marstons.
Yeah.
John's Marston.
John's Marston. And so I think this is kind of fun. They teamed up as, quote, their mutual sense of roguish honor grew into genuine trust. And so
They were a thieves guild.
Thieves Guild. Now what do you know when you guild up with thieves, Matt? What is bound to happen?
Somebody's gonna stab you in the back.
Someone will stab you in the back. And so, like I said, this agreement was all fine and good until one of their hits got busted. And Twisted Fate left Graves
The job
high
went
and dry.
bad.
Job went bad. Someone's got to pay for it, and that was Graves. And so Graves ended up locked up for years and years and years, and he escaped. And he escaped with the warden's gun, which is like his gun now. And he vowed to chase down Twisted Fate. And so, he pursued him for years and years. And then at this showdown between the two, they ended up having to put their issues aside and ally up against a pirate king known as Gangplank.
Monkey D. Luffy.
Monkey D. Luffy. Yeah, so here's Gangplank, who is this like pirate king who I remember being a pretty dope champion. And Gangplank is this fierce pirate king that, he's just like storming across the continent doing whatever. And what's rad about it is that Gangplank actually gets taken down by the coolest of all four of these, a character named Misfortune. And so Misfortune is kind of a dumb name when you just take it at face value. However, you come to find out that her story is actually really, really good. So her name is Sarah Fortune. And so like Fortune is a last name,
I was waiting for when we would get a Boobs McGee.
Yeah. Her model on her character photo on the official League of Legends website is not great. But Sarah Fortune, she is the daughter of this family that their last name is Fortune, and they are famous pistol manufacturers. Like they make pistols. And so Sarah has like the tragic.
Does she make a
backstory.
hammer pistol?
She doesn't make a
pistol
hammer
that shoots hammers.
Only Jace makes hammers because his family is from a long line of hammer makers. Sarah became a bounty hunter after seeing her mother and father were gunned down by Gangplank himself. So this like pirate king. She like had to rebuild her life and her pistols, and she waited. She became a bounty hunter. She collected all this bounty money, made all these allies, slowly made a force until like one day she like cornered Gangplank and attacked him and left him with nothing but the flaming wreckage of his ship. So like it's kind of rad that in these like intertwining stories that all come together, that this like woman who had everything taken from her like puts it together and is like, no, I'm gonna murder you. And I don't know if he's actually dead. I don't know if any of the champions actually die. That'd be a good one to check.
It's like Mortal Kombat. They
have their
back.
own stories and can die, but like
they get thrown into a volcano and then they get reincarnated as a devil.
That's my thought.
The League of Legends itself exists out of continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Overwatch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The last thing I want to hit is that the attention to detail. So this caught me by surprise, and it makes total sense that there are storylines behind the skins on heroes. Now,
like Beach Day.
Like Beach Day. Yeah, like Beach Day. Now, if you would have told me about this idea, I don't know, a year and a half ago, I'd have been like, that's not possible. But now, having played Overwatch constantly for a year and a half, I understand there are storylines to skins, and this just makes sense. So, Riot is no exception to wanting to do events and make money. And so they have a couple really good storylines. So Zakix had pointed out a couple of them, too, that really rose to the surface, I thought. One that is called Project. And so Riot built this, so I think all of these land in alternate universes, or at least most of them. Riot introduced an alternate universe concept where some of their champions received, major upgrades in this futuristic cyberpunk world. So
it's the Ultimates line.
It is the Ultimates line, yes. If you want to see a really good one, I don't have it linked in here, but look up League of Legends Project Vi, and that will show you exactly what we're doing. It hits the nail on the head.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Yep.
I super get it.
She's got a visor and space gauntlets. Anyway,
so really it's the 2099 line.
It is more 2099 than anything. Champions receive these cybernetic enhancements, artificial intelligence, etc. And so this also included limited game types and a seasonal event that lasted a certain amount of time. Does that sound familiar? Is this a thing? Yeah. Anyway, for what it's worth, before I talk about some of the beats of this story, it is, in my humble opinion, near impossible to find a comprehensive overview of this storyline that isn't just buck wild paragraphs attached to skin details of heroes, or just
it's an event that happened in the game of League of Legends that they wrote 2 paragraphs of story for that no one's seen, and this is all just they attack the thing because reasons.
The Ultimates line. It's just a couple paragraphs.
Yeah.
It's I think
nobody's ever seen.
No one's ever seen it. Doesn't matter.
The comparison here is probably to piecing together stories from the actual flavor text of Magic the Gathering. I think you had kind of insinuated that, Kyle, that's yes. Kind of, I think the bigger thing here is that League of Legends obviously has a very strong fan base, but I don't think anyone's gone to the lengths of like putting the stories for these seasonal events together.
Yeah,
and I kind of
no one that you found.
That I found. That's true. I don't know what parts of the internet I'll find those, and I'm not willing to do them on my work computer. But without getting like too lost in the weeds on this, here's the best like layman overview that I can give you of the project skin storyline. And so this is effectively League of Legends Cyberpunk Playground universe. And like that alone is super cool. Like the idea of taking your favorite heroes, your favorite champions, your favorite stories, and slapping them in a brand new universe is not a novel idea, but it is a very cool idea. And there are a number of, I guess, factions, if you will. And so to name them, the first one is Project. So that's all capitals, might be an acronym. It is the shady tech company that uses humans as subjects. There are a couple named, I guess, heroes that are working for them. So champions Zed and Katarina are working for them. Then another one of the factions is G/Netic, which I can only assume is pronounced genetic.
Oh yeah, it's
gotta be.
Well, it could be
or like genetic, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, and this is the rebellion. So this is led by Ashe, and it includes champions that have escaped from Project as experiments. So that's a whole big deal. I swear to God, this is like the best I could find on this. Program is a faction of AI that are growing, and they, quote, have their own agendas. Oh my God, just tell me about it. I just want to know what their agendas are. I do have to laugh, though, because like I don't know if that's the official statement or not, but like... It's a robot uprising.
It's a robot uprising. It's a robot uprising.
Robot uprising.
Their agenda is to enslave and or wipe out humanity.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this one.
Reason.
I went back and forth on this one because I was like, I want to know more. I'm like, but you know what? This is the AI. That's what AI do.
Yep.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah. It's the Terminator. Doesn't matter why.
And as I kind of mentioned, this is all very timely, and I appreciate Zakix like pointing this out as one to look at because Vi ends up being like one of the main characters of the storyline because she is a detective using cybernetically enhanced gauntlets for punching information out of people, I assume. I don't know.
She punches the crimes.
Hey, look, I played Heavy Rain. I get it.
Yeah. So there is obviously a ton of wild storyline bits here. Like if you go to any place that's compiling any of this information, it's just link after link after link of the hero skin and what goes in behind it. And if that kind of like level of deep lore is your jam, I encourage you to get into that. There's a lot of it there. Also, for what it's worth, if you're looking up any of this stuff, use the official Riot Games League of Legends universe website because like wikis are a great place to start. However, if any of in the League of Legends like lore wikis, if there are comment sections at the bottom, it's just people disagreeing all the way down.
See, and that's where like I think we disagree there because I tend to believe that the less trustworthy a particular story's lore is, the more trustworthy its wiki is. Like, you know, for example, like the Metal Gear Solid wiki is probably the greatest wiki in the history of wikis because that story is absolutely incomprehensible. And there are Metal Gear Solid scholars that are poring over the tomes, over the texts.
See, and I like that too. In the bits that I did for the research on this one, though, I kept finding like it felt like an unending list of actuallys. Without like
that's what wikis are.
Well, no, stop that. There's
peer review process is just a series of actuallys.
It's an actually with actually. If you remember, this happened, which means this can't happen. This was the one that I ended up. I forget what page it was for the project research, but it was just like, actually, I don't think that's right. And like nothing to like counteract it, and then it's just people being, but no, it is right. And you're like, this is not helpful. Anyway, I
can tell that it's not right because of the way it is.
Yeah.
The fact that League of Legends made an alternate universe with cyberpunk costumes, rad. Cool. I'm into it. Very cool. The other one I'm going to talk about is called Battle Academia.
All right,
Andrew, do you know what this is? I saved it for last for this reason. I put in my notes, do you want anime battle school? Because that's what you're going to get.
Yeah,
and so students can fight each other. So it's exactly what you think. Anyway, so this is a whole side story, alternate universe where the heroes that are the champions that are involved are all at a school training future champions. That school is called Durandal God Weapon Academy.
Stop. You've already sold me.
Yeah. Someone needs to call Marcus the boner police for Andrew here. So there's some really cool bits on this. I read a little bit about it to make sure like we were kind of covering some of these bases of some of the heroes and names that you knew. So okay, you guys remember Jace? Jace with the perfect jaw, family made hammers.
Go ahead. No. I jumped ahead.
Yeah. So of course Jace is the class president.
Of course, Jace is the class president.
Why wouldn't he be?
All that privilege.
Yeah.
I will say part of this research, I was like looking up what different heroes were doing and what people had to say about it. And one person was like, but why does he still have the hammer? I was like, fair question.
Because his family made hammers, Todd.
Look, have you ever been to anime fight school?
I've never been to Durandal God Weapon Academy.
Then stop asking questions.
Fair. A couple other names. If you've played League of Legends, you'll know Lux and Ezreal. They're also just like main characters, freshmen. It is definitely anime punch school, but I think that also took notes from Harry Potter. Which is kind of neat.
Sure.
We also get wild things where students join clubs like Battle Club and the Assassin Club, which like there's rules that you fight students, but like you don't kill students unless you're in the Assassin Club, in which you are allowed to kill other students.
Amazing.
Well, obviously,
Rad.
how else are they going to practice assassinating?
This is the most anime thing I think I've heard of in a long time. If you remember, I talked about Graves the Outlaw earlier when I was talking about skins. Graves the Outlaw here is a grumpy professor who doesn't want to be a professor, but he's a professor. So it's really fun that they like took these heroes and put them in these really cool settings. So I would have never guessed that League of Legends did punch anime school, but here it is, and it's not surprising that it happened.
Well, it's fun like when you like lean into it too, just like what's like. Don't worry about reality. How many characters can we fit in here and make it as silly as possible? And
I have to venture to think that I'm sure that these stories are even that more rewarding to people who are big fans of the deep lore, because I'm sure they keep like fun connections.
Yes,
but they're like wink and nods, and that's
the art
neat.
that they did for it is so good too.
It is good, right? Like this is one of those things that again like. Package this up into a little mini series, and I would watch it. You know, like I'm into this.
Yeah, this is definitely like if I were into League of Legends, I'd be all into this. Because I mean, like I'm super into the Overwatch deep lore.
Yeah,
nobody cares about that, but I enjoy it because I enjoy Overwatch. So I absolutely get it. And from everything that you've told me, I think Riot has done a pretty phenomenal job laying these storylines out.
I mean, they've had 12 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Well, and it's again like using Fiddlesticks as an example that they went back to something they made over a decade ago at some point, and they're like, okay, this was great when we started it, but like, what can we do now to keep it good, to make it better?
Yeah.
And you know this Battle Academia, much like the Project skin line, like. They've done this really cool thing by taking these just beloved characters and putting them in this alternate universe and having fun with it and telling fun stories that get to exist outside of time and space. And again, it's worth noting that both Project and Battle Academia are just these really, really cool concepts. My only wish is that Riot did a better job compiling these stories into a much more easy to digest medium. You know, it's probably not high on their list because I don't know when they did the Project seasonal storyline, but like they did it and it was successful, and maybe they'll bring it back again, but they don't need to do like a ton of that. They don't need to pump more time into that, but you know, we here at Debate This, we can give you like a taste of that. But boy howdy, does League of Legends skin and storyline form this wild, deep lore spiderweb.
I was just really curious, and I Googled if there are League of Legends comic books, because I know a lot of the, like, Overwatch deep lore lives in the comic series, and there is a League of Legends comic book series. For people who are into that sort of thing. Again, not me.
I bet, too, there are cinematics that existed when these events happened that, like, if you punch the right words into YouTube, you could watch, but, like...
You're probably right.
But that's not official through Riot. That's someone, ripped from from 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, and their comics are published by Marvel, so it's not nothing.
Oh. League of Legends when in the MCU when?
No. I can't.
So those things aside, so we are not strangers to stories behind characters with their lore. We're not strangers to stories behind lore of costumes. What are your guys' quick takes on those things?
I like the anime battle school.
Punch School. Yeah,
it's great. Like, again, if I played this, I'd absolutely be into the, like, project story, like, skins and the cybernetic world. That's awesome. Like,
yeah, good on you.
Good on them. Go Riot in this one particular regard.
In this one time, because I don't know about your extensive business practices.
Let me know when they do their Wasteland /Zombies storyline, and I'll come back in.
You say that, it may exist.
I'm sure it exists.
Well, before we crack open that one, thanks again for listening to Debate This. You can follow along with our arguments on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at DebateThisCast, or on our website at debatethiscast.com. And once again, thanks to Zakix, who I found out got his username based on the League of Legends champion Kha'Zix, which is a fun little... That's fun lore. For giving me a reason to power binge watch a whole season of Arcane in a literal 48-hour period. And you too can commission a flavor text by joining the top tier of our Patreon. And joining our Patreon gives you a lot of benefits. Like, you'll have access to our Discord community. You have the ability to review our weird show notes. We can give you potentially a sticker of a caked up Yoshi. You give us enough, I'll say Andrew's cell phone number on live air. Maybe we can just do that sometime.
Oh, doxing Andrew is a tier now.
I mean, look, if the price is right, I don't give a shit.
There we go.
Attitude. With that attitude with us. Until next time, I'm Todd Thomas.
I am Kyle. The national anthem of the underworld might be Crossroads by Stevie Ray Vaughan. Harper.
I'm Matt, a hard Piltover to swallow. Cole.
And I'm Andrew. I get my peaches down in the underground sewer city of Zaun, Henderson.
And we're saying thanks for debating with us. And if you think we're wrong, you can come fight us behind the swing sets, nerds.